we are back again at the table here for another episode. Today we are going to be talking about different opening mechanisms.
Thumb studs, flippers, thumb holes, thumb discs.
Nail nicks.
Love them or hate them.
Whatever style.
Whatever you want to call that. I don't know. All right, before we start off, what's everyone carrying tonight? Let's start with Paul.
Yep.
I start off with the 462.
Special anodizing by Paul.
By me.
It's fancy and such.
It is pretty.
Evidently, I like colors.
I think we all enjoy colors.
I need to exist because of Dennis.
a nice opposition and a balance.
Great. I do. All right. Nigel, what are you rocking tonight?
I've got a nice little Emerson opening Delica. Just a fun little play toy.
It's a fidget toy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Snap it off of random things. It's good times. Snapping it off of me if you're not careful. All right.
I'll just put that down.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
I'm going with another Griptilian. I've got a couple of them in the stack, but that's the carbon fiber. It's a DLT exclusive M390 on the blade. This guy almost became a top 3.
I feel like we're all going to stab ourselves.
We're going to throw it off the edge
Please, let's not.
towards Paul. But yeah, that's what I'm rocking tonight.
All right. And new to me, little guy. 452? Yeah, 450 CF. Sorry.
Big
I
Brothers
suppose.
of 2.
Yes.
Big brother, get that out there.
I'm going to have to go back and retract what I said before. I'm pretty sure I called this the 462. It's 452.
62 is the Persian-y big one.
Wow.
Yeah.
On to a great start, guys.
So
Awesome.
from this side, it doesn't look like much, and then you turn it over, and you get a little kapow going on the back side.
Just
with
a little
the
kapow.
452.
Yeah.
450, sorry.
Yeah.
CF. They're both CFs.
Just looking at all the dust inside my knife.
And then, yeah, get a Q-tip in there, man. Seriously. Yeah. Other side, which is upside down, but anyway.
I
Yeah.
carried a lot.
Both
Get
using
that
S35. This one's just tiny. and I
This
love it.
one's new to you.
Absolutely.
He just picked it up.
Oh, the details on that one's sketchy. We're going to talk about that. Let's get into that, boys. All right. Is that everyone?
I believe it is.
All
Yeah.
right.
I think kind of kicking off this discussion about early opening mechanisms and styles and stuff like that should be the buck with the nail nick.
Again, that right there, this changed the knife world, is this nail nick here with the lock back, and between the two of them, that opened up the world that we all love to live in right now. And that was
Indeed.
that bad boy there. It's got a good enough retention that you can't get it one-handed, and there was a company, what was it called, that had the thumb studs that you could attach onto this.
Flicket was the old
Like
one.
it.
Yeah.
And I
Original.
thought there was a new company called Quickset, but I could be wrong on that.
They could be two opposing companies.
So yeah, after the nail nick sort of style of the opening,
1964 is when we were rocking that date on that.
it was actually Spyderco with the hole opening was the next next opening style, and it was the first one-handed opening style.
Yeah, Cell Glasser got the idea to drill a hole through a knife, and you can stuff your thumb in there and rip it open. And
Yep.
the C01,
I would
Yep,
argue it's
the
a
worker.
natural progression.
Yeah, it actually.
and the mid-lock back,
Yep.
as well as the lock back.
The hole actually started out as divots, as just kind of a purchase point for your thumb, but then they just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper until they thought, why not just make a full hole? And 1981 was when they got the patent for doing the hole for the one-handed opening mechanism there.
What was interesting at the time was this was one of the, well, it was the first knife, well, not a specific one, but with the opening holes to feature different methods of deployment from the same grip. So obviously, I'm sure everyone's familiar with the Spidey drop. Grab it, flip the handle out. You can flip it with your thumb, your middle finger, whatever you like. It was very versatile for the time.
Easier to do with the Spydercos without the lock back.
This
Yeah.
is true.
It
Less
makes
tension on the blade.
It makes so much sense now, though, why it's the Spidey drop and the Spidey flick and everything else,
Yep.
because they were the first.
They were right in there with everyone else and innovators of the modern knife world, for
Yeah.
sure.
It was around this time Spyderco actually introduced their patent for the first pocket clip for knives as well.
Oh, your lock needs work. It's all stuffed up.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, a
gross.
little gummy, then you can clean it for sure.
Terrible.
Get in there
Terrible.
with a
Yeah,
toothbrush.
yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah, so that was 1981. The model was called the Worker.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about Spyderco is they actually keep their numbers all consecutively, so as the numbers go up, so does the model. So like the Gale Bradley we had last week was the 134. Sliz Bowie, 212? I have no idea. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Delicas were C11.
Yeah, the Enduros were C10,
Yeah.
which was the big brother to one of these bad boys here. And all the way through. So that's actually something nice to keep track of the models that they release. Although it's hard to keep up because they are in the 200s, maybe even the 300s at this point in time.
They do have many varieties.
And lots of those numbers are no longer in use, so it's kind of hard to keep a sequential order these days.
Now, in and around the same time, and I don't know exactly when, but Benchmade was using a hole as well. And they came out with a couple different models, the Reptilian obviously being one of the first ones. I think the Pika in the red class, which I've got kicking around, it's funny that I don't have it on me, or the Hex in the red class.
Yep.
But for whatever reason, they chose not to go after Benchmade for using the hole. There became an agreement that it was
fair use, kind of.
Yeah. Rather than go after each other, they made it okay for Benchmade to use the hole, and they have used the hole in a couple newer models, even like the mini onslaughts, the Reptilians. So that's where we stood on the holes.
Currently, the patent is expired. However, it is registered as a trademark for Spyderco. So you will see knives that use, and I don't think we have any here, but if you see knives that, like the Pillar, actually, that has like an elongated hole instead of just a perfectly round one, that does not infringe on the trademark, so it's free use.
See, I actually thought it was anything that had any sort of indentation was the original patent. You'll have to fact check that because I actually thought that.
Look into it, but
that might fall into the original patent, but as far as the trademark, I'm not sure.
Benchmade, getting away with it. Indentations, thumb holes. I was always under the impression that they just kind of let everything slide, but technically, even like the Marzatelli thumb groove that was like almost like a fuller. I thought they were able to go after them, and they just kind of let it go unless it was very, very obvious that it was Benchmade exempt, right? But
and that might be a patent versus trademark sort of issue, and since the patent's expired,
it might also be a matter of where the knives are manufactured.
Maybe.
Because I know when it comes to certain laws, like trademark laws in Canada and the United States versus like Korea, vastly different. The way that they work.
Yeah.
Not entirely certain.
So probably in and around that same time, a young guy came to play. No. Before that, we got this guy,
Mr. Kit Carson with the flipper.
and I'm glad one of us has a CRKT as
Yeah.
well.
And actually, I did a fair bit of research into try and figure out who came out with the first style of flipper, and there have been even antique examples of slip joints with flippers from like 1875.
Okay.
Early 1900s.
I was gonna say, are you telling me that the flipper predates the thumb stud?
Yes.
Hands down.
That's crazy.
As far as the modern ones, the kind of progression of learning was Mel Pardue.
Mr. Malpart.
Yeah. Wonderful knives that gentleman made for sure, but couldn't exactly figure out where Mel Pardue figured it out from, but he taught a gentleman, Milbreath was his last name?
Randall Milbreath.
Randall Milbreath, yes, thank you, Joe.
We'll fact check that and throw it up in case it's a mistake.
But I do believe Joe was remembering right. That was Randall Milbreath. So Mel Pardue taught Randall Milbreath, and Milbreath taught Carson, and he came out with designs for the CRT, the M16, and the M21 lineup.
Mr. Kit Carson.
Yeah, towards the end of the 90s and the late 90s, there was when he came up with that, and really. Him and CRT were the ones that put flippers on the map and really popularized them.
You mean that's not pronounced cricket? I, for one, am shocked.
Mac.
It is my sister's saying it because it's
There's
her
a knife.
nickname as well, so she's
There's a
happy
knife
about
called the
that.
Cricket. It's called the Spyderco Cricket.
Yeah.
It's discontinued. This is called a CRKT.
Yes, it
It
is.
annoys me when people get that wrong,
Yep.
but that's
I
fine.
had to bring it up, so I guess.
No, it's alright. Whatever.
People need to relax.
No, we're angry. We are upset.
I'm waiting for you to get angry about flippers, so.
Now,
Yeah, actually, yes.
Yeah.
He
Well,
was just playing with his ZT.
we're
with the
talking
flipper
about grips. The next thing in line is probably the Skyline. It's a very old model.
there.
Now, this is the very cool Damascus steel one.
Well,
yeah.
Cole's never seen this one.
Yeah,
I don't
No.
think.
this thing, I want one of these myself, actually.
They're nice.
If I couldn't get an M390 dividend. But,
I got that.
yeah, that's a sweet
Oh,
knife.
yeah.
And slim and thin in the pocket. And what year did the Skyline
Oh.
originally come out?
My goodness. I'm going to have to look that one up.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
actually
been
not
a
sure.
long.
It is one of
long
their
string.
longest running knives. To give you an idea, it is the 1760 model.
But that being said, it doesn't seem like Kershaw really has a continuity with their numbering with their models.
Yeah, I don't
so.
think it's
Oh, fair
consecutive
enough.
Yeah.
on their stuff,
Yeah.
right? I want to say 2004 to 2006 or
Yeah.
something like that. Like, it's probably 10
That
years or
seems
so. Maybe not. Maybe it could be later. But
Yep.
1428
Both of
Sandvik.
those
from
times
the-
or dates were more than 10 years. Just throwing that out there.
What's that?
You're more than 10 years.
You said 2004, 2006, like 10 years ago.
More than 10 years. It's more than 10 years. You're more than 10 years. Let's get the show on the road.
I already covered that.
Yeah, he already told you you're more than 10 years.
Okay. So yeah, after kind of haven't touched on thumb studs yet.
In and around the same time, this was 2000 model.
Yeah.
Is when Mr. Osborne came to play. And you guys didn't bring your green ones again, because that's the original Osborne. And
Indeed.
I got a broken Omega spring,
Same
shockingly enough.
I'm gonna,
Yeah.
Mine's busted as well.
well,
I'm
you
sorry.
guys should get on that. 'Cause
Yeah.
It took me 2 weeks to get to be all up in love with my carbon fiber one again.
I want a deep clip, too.
And you got to do it, man. It's just the right thing to do. And thumb studs in the year 2000. And I don't know if Osborne was the first. Tizola, we were talking about thumb discs, probably came around earlier than thumb studs did.
Yeah, so
90s,
Tizola.
Emerson, 90s.
So it's all blowing my
we-
mind right now.
Yeah.
None of us have a Tizola knife here, unfortunately. But he was the one who came up with the idea for the thumb disc. At least rumor has it. I wasn't able to find a solid source on that, but he certainly was the one who popularized fighting knives and tactical knives, and they were made for people who worked in the FBI, the CIA, that sort of stuff. So I mean, he's a pretty high-profile knife maker, and thinking that would be about the right period of time for thumb discs to become popular.
Mid-90s.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
And
there's-
between Ernest Emerson with his own brand, and then he got into the Benchmade versions of Emerson's as well, and then he became his own company, and now he's got Emerson versions that are Kershaw versions of the Emersons now
Yep.
as well out there. So, yeah, the thumb plate has been around for a good long time.
We want to talk about the wave.
Well, I was just going to say, as we were talking about Emerson and what he's popularized, we may as well touch base with the wave and how Dennis mentioned that there is a lineup of the Kershaw built Emerson designs. None of us actually do have that here, but the Delica with the little wave there, the ZT with the wave, it is a pocket catch, easy opening sort of style.
We do,
Yeah,
we do
and
have, and of course, safety first. Safety
Yep.
first.
Gotta bring the trainer.
The Emersons together.
What's going on here?
Getting the Emersons together.
Kid Carson, God rest his soul. We've moved on to other things now, so we're just going to put all the delicates together because that bugged me.
Fair enough.
We got some Emersons and then even the thumb stud, but yeah. So yeah, the deployment reason is let's go with the sharp one there. When it catches off the pocket, if this is the pocket there, you catch something on that, and as you're deploying it, it snaps open. Hopefully, all the way it locks.
You know what you're doing.
Well. ZT, it'll snap open, no problem, but that's bronze washers compared to built-in Teflon on the Spydercos with a lockback and it's all stiff.
Just saying.
So, thumb plate combined with the hook, you might as well dabble on that because we dabbled on that a couple weeks ago. So.
Yeah, supposedly the idea is that the blade, Okay, so the wave was actually originally made to entrap other blades. The idea being that if you somehow got into a knife fight, you've made a series of mistakes and you've gotten yourself into a knife fight.
Some drastic mistakes.
Yes.
And it's great that we have a trainer. We should keep a
Yep.
trainer on hand just for these situations. Yeah.
So as you can see, as the blade would come up, it was supposed to deflect off of the wheel and into the hook, and it was supposed to catch. Now, what Emerson found is that as he was playing around with the prototype in his pocket, moments after his friend and collaborator had left with the other prototype, he calls him up excitedly. Ernest, do you know what this thing does? Apparently, yeah, they found out together in nearly the same moment that as they draw it from the pocket, it opened. It was an accidental development, but it ended up changing tactical knives as we know them.
That it did.
And like I said, on the ZT, with the fit and finish on the ZT,
Yeah, all day.
it's as soon as it catches the pocket there and it's getting drawn out, it's
Very snappy.
yeah.
I love
it's-
that knife.
I know
love
they were
that knife so
originally
much.
tactical designs, but as like somebody that just works around where they have to get a knife out and they might have something in their hands a lot,
Absolutely.
Mhm.
it's fantastic to be able to pull your knife out of your pocket and it's open right then
Yeah.
and there.
And again, the whole idea behind a tactical knife, like originally Trezola coined the term in terms of as a weapon, but tactical, like, you know, there's a tactic to how you do things, and it sounds cheesy, but think about, technically this is a tactical knife in that same regard. It's one-handed opening and it locks, but I mean, it's a Delica. Everyone's going to have different tastes, but they're excellent work knives. But we see these developments continue on into other opening mechanisms over the next few years. And I did a little bit of research into Andrew Demko, who came up with a thumb plate. And the whole idea, same thing with the
thumb
triathlon.
plate wave.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So you were saying Juzola, but now Devco took it a step further.
Yeah, and he moved the plate up, removed a little bit of material behind, and it does the same thing.
Now I've also heard that this is a little bit of a sneaky on the
It's a bit of a contentious
patents.
point, yeah.
And DPX, none of us own DPX, but I know Everyday Caleb on Instagram, he was just talking to me the other day about his DPX, and it's got the cutout on the top that does the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But conveniently avoids Emerson's
Yes.
patent.
So, well, the funny
Like,
thing
It's
is,
not my fault if I
Emerson
can get around
doesn't.
here.
Well, I don't. Now that we're gonna have to do yet another fact check for Nigel to throw it on the camera, but I don't think that Emerson actually has a patent. What I think he has is a trademark on that exact shape, which is why they can get away with shit like this and stuff like the Spyderco Pical, which has the little hook off the top.
I
Well,
think it's
just the
just-
rod
I
coming.
think
That's
it's a
what I
very
mean, yeah.
specific integral part of the blade, whereas
Yes.
it's an attachment on.
I was
going
going
to
to say, because
Yeah.
this is licensed and it's not quite the same shape.
No, but it's still an integral part
Yes.
of the blade.
100%.
And that's what I
Whereas
mean, yeah.
This guy
So
here
if
or
there's-
the rod on the Pical don't have that.
it's either a very specific trademark or a very specific patent or a combination of both, but it allows other makers to do things like this.
And you said you were going to bring your zip tie, and the conversation comes up about
I
all
forgot.
the different sneaking around
We're-
patents.
We're giving this guy shit.
It's my
a
first
little bit.
And the best way to sneak around a patent is to make your knife look
Hey.
like the grossest thing in the world by putting a zip tie on the freaking top of it.
It's gross,
It's so
So
gross.
gross.
but it works.
It definitely does work, and I've cut it off my pocket. But I've cut the thumb stud of the Pardue off my pocket
Yeah.
as well, the 530.
If I try hard enough, I can do that with my Crooked River.
My H&K out of my back pocket. The Access H&K doesn't.
So I guess that would be late 90s then.
Yes.
Then we broke into thumb studs.
And thumb studs seem to have enjoyed a wider stretch of popularity than any other opening mechanism.
Yeah, there almost doesn't seem to be a patent on them or something, because everyone seems to use them without any issue.
So, Sabenza, oh! Did Sabenza put the first thumb stud? It had to be 90s.
I don't think so.
Early
Did
90s.
Did they Volkswagen it?
I don't think
I
so,
don't
because
think so.
liner locks existed before Chris Reeve got to them, and I know thumb studs existed on early examples of liner
But
locks.
that's an integral one.
And
Yes.
Well,
but we're not doing
we're not doing a lock
patent,
right
so-
today.
I'm going to bring this one up in a bit because it's a thumb stud, but it's a special kind of thumb stud that
Yep.
we don't have.
Well, we haven't touched on that with flippers as well.
yeah, so
yeah.
we'll bring those into the equation because am I the only one?
Yep.
Really?
That what?
I don't like assisted.
That's
Wow.
I feel about assisted the way you feel about flippers.
Look at my EDCs on a regular basis. This guy here has a special heart
Yeah.
drive. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've got my volley, but broken in
There's a heart in your place.
Yeah.
Benchmade, get
Heart
your
in
heat
my
treatment
place.
right.
So, thumb studs. And Chris Reeve was 97? Wow, I can't believe I guessed it. I was totally like
I'm pretty sure, actually.
I was
21 years
Let me fact check that.
I was stretching on a like foul ball on that one, but yeah.
The depth of knowledge he can pull out of his brain is stupid sometimes.
I don't think it's brain he's pulling it out of.
Yeah, but if it's consistent enough, people will eventually believe my BS.
Oh wow, the Savenza has its own Wikipedia entry. That's
Of course
hilarious.
it does.
Not surprising.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, with the title,
Oh.
still Thumbstud
1990.
90.
That was the current basic model.
But where did the Thumbstud? Did he have the Thumbstud on his basic model? Because that might
Yes.
predate a flipper with the Kit Carson even.
He did.
Yep.
Wow.
The flipper and Kit Carson was
There
like
we go.
97,
Fact
99.
checked, lawyered.
There was still
Wikipedia,
flippers
ultimate
like a
authority.
long time ago, like
Oh yeah, yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
but
but-
the modern.
Yeah. The popular modern.
And that's what we should. Well, I mean, this will come up more and more in the conversation, I think. But the popularization is
Wow.
popularization of something is, I think, intrinsically different from like when it was first used. Again, flippers from the 1800s.
So did
I don't know why Dennis is shuffling.
That's
I've
why.
got an order now because I'm wondering which was first, the Griptilian or the Osborne, and then we've got some moderns here.
Yeah.
I was keeping the benchmates together just to let me have my OCD moment. It's what I do. Have you not seen the other 3 videos?
Shuffle.
We understand the OCD, but we're just like
trying
wondering
to understand.
where it's.
There's a progression. So my first question was a Griptilian first or an Osborne first? Because I can't remember.
You'd have to look up the Doug Ritter
Oh, you're
personally
correct, sir.
first, because
Rather
I
than
believe,
Purdue.
because I believe the Osborne was directly a Benchmade, designed with Benchmade for Benchmade rather than a custom.
Turned into a production.
yeah.
And then I did have it, it's slightly off topic, but I thought about it earlier, and I'm really, really curious. Which Griptilian was first, the Clip-On or the Warncliffe? And I don't
Yeah,
know, but
yeah.
I kind
And
of want
Thumbstud
to.
versus Hole.
Yeah, and that's the other reason I was kind of curious.
The Warncliffs are always with the hole.
But they're both Pardue designs, right?
Mhm.
Mel Pardue, Mr. Mel Pardue.
Yeah.
So, chicken or the egg, you know. Yeah, so I want to look into that. Back to Thumbstuds.
Yeah.
And the Pardue.
Oh man, I wonder.
I want to say Clip Point was first.
I think it would be ultra juicy if Pardue licensed the opening hole and then sold the design to Benchmade.
And then we've got
It'd be really mean.
that would be custom designer all of a sudden because you were talking about customs earlier, and then some modern offerings.
I had read something somewhere talking about how Spyderco would only license the Hole to custom makers and not to production companies.
Yeah, you were saying that.
Barring Benchmade.
Benchmade, yeah.
Yeah.
So new offering from
Got Ferro Rod on
Benchmade,
my,
Schmutz.
It needs some swipping off.
it's Ferro Rod swipped.
Swip that thing like you should.
I was outside Ferro Rodding it 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago.
Nicely swipped.
Swipped and clean.
And that feels like the old flick it, as you put it,
Mhm.
for the Buck 110. That this turned the Buck 110 into a flick it with the Crooked River.
Aw.
You fail, sir. Finger flick it like you know you can. Flick it. What?
Yeah, just to ruin it for you.
Okay, so now what do we got? We got this freaky thing. We got this weird thing. This should have come up first. Is this?
Yes. So this basically it's an opening system that's been around since pocket knives were a thing. Extended tab.
Can you call it a modern traditional? Like
that
the
one-
last episode we just aired?
Yeah,
I'm
because
just
it has a
curious.
liner lock.
Yeah,
The liner lock, 100%
Makes
most
it a
definitely.
modern.
Yes. Yeah.
but that almost should have fallen into last week's episode.
We
with
should have
the-
put it in there because it does have the carpenter tab. It is kind of the peasant sort of style for sure.
But
It
it
sure
is-
does call it a Higo.
But it is the lock. I think, and no matter how forgiving a traditionalist you are, I don't
Yeah.
think this quite counts as a traditional knife.
And sitting at the table, I'm pretty sure the
Semi-traditional?
only one that doesn't own one is Paul.
You better get on that.
I gotta call you out on that because
No, I don't.
what?
You own one.
Nope.
Oh shoot! I thought you
I
had-
was about to buy one. And
Oh,
I've been
now I
talking
get to harass you both. That's great. Sorry.
I waited too long to buy one, and then they stopped selling them with that fancy box and haven't taken the price down, and that pisses me off. So I don't really want to buy one
I
at this
see.
moment in
I
time.
see. We're getting all shouty-outy to show about discontinuing the little magnetic box that I might personally own upstairs.
I don't
got one
have
as well, they're
this
awesome.
personal steak knife, but my Ika Nordic is my
Mhm.
personal steak knife. I will like take that with me when I go
What was
places.
the other one? Oh, the STS. You like using it as a steak.
It gets used
a
a lot.
Mark River episode.
It does.
You were talking about it.
I like eating meat with good knives.
I take this to a restaurant, and I don't even know if I'm going to eat steak that night. But if I'm going to a restaurant and there's a possibility of a decent priced ribeye that I can be confident about, that little boy's coming out to play.
This was the. Yeah. No,
The keg's 20 ounce.
I love this knife.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It's a ribeye.
awesome.
Oh, it is.
But there's aside from the liner lock, there's nothing too modern about the design, really. I mean, you can find historic examples of something.
It's just
very
one
similar
in
to
there
this.
with the buck knife that
Yeah.
early on they put a twist on it by putting
Now-
a liner lock on it. But the solid VG1 and the polish you can put on solid
10, I think.
VG1. Is it a VG10?
I think it's.
Oh,
VG10.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
might be right. Yeah.
That
So
it was.
we should talk about the fact that there's two different versions of this,
Mm-hmm.
and the more expensive one has a very weird blade shape compared to.
They changed the blade shape recently as well.
Okay.
Okay.
But without-
The more expensive one is the more traditionally Japanese one. The cheaper one has a bit of a clip point on it, and it's the more westernized sort of styling.
This man knows what he's talking about.
I'm not Japanese. That's all I'm saying. I like the other one.
And
See, Nigel.
I
Nigel
would-
is not Japanese.
No.
Super Japanese.
I would love to see the Western one with a higher end steel than the
Yes.
420J. Don't get me wrong.
Japanese,
He's right.
ginger, freckles.
Um,
That's a thing.
I don't know how to respond to that.
I've seen some MMA fighters that dye their hair some pretty funky colors. They might fall into that category. But that was skipping backwards in time because we forgot about him.
Yeah.
And also skipping back in time,
Yes, I
we
was just
forgot
gonna
about
say.
this guy a little bit.
It is a double slip joint.
Mhm.
So this guy came out around. Oh, geez. This was after the Cold Steel introduced their butterfly knife called the Archangel.
The walk and
So
talk on
silly.
this knife is terrible. Sorry, I had to kill it.
This is as far. Yeah.
Hold on. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's. I like it because of how weird it is. Plus, it's discontinued. Good luck finding them these days.
Yeah.
People have modified them into real butterfly knives. I think
Oh,
that's a
You can
waste.
still find them.
Oh yeah.
They were made for years, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's only
So-
like
As much as I hate on that, I own one too.
They had a stainless steel handled one. They had a
way back when.
They had
right?
a
Yeah.
titanium
Yes,
anodized handle.
They also
Stainless
had
would be nice.
They also had them in two different sizes. Nobody
Yeah.
seems to talk about that, but there's
Right.
this size, and then I think there's one that's
They had the
slightly
pocket sword.
larger.
They had
Yeah.
pocket sword.
Yeah,
I
it's
just remember
pretty
this
nuts.
current version because it was while I was into the knife world, and that's the production time that I remember.
I remember handling the titanium anodized. It was pretty much all like a dark blue, and then it had some tints of the purple going
Nice.
on. And they did them as well as a tie light that was an anodized titanium.
I would have
That's a
loved one
thing?
of those because
With Oz 8 though, still. So
I'll
you could
swap
blade,
it to
you
X.
could blade swap if you can track one down. You bet, yeah.
People, help me out here.
Paul
So-
needs that in his life.
So I will say that, as Joe mentioned, this one is a double slip joint. It is spring tension on both sides. But I will point out, as we're talking about opening mechanisms and styles and stuff, one thing that we don't have at the table is a butterfly knife. And main reason for that is we are in Canada. Those are illegal. We cannot get those because they are gravity opening.
yeah,
Um,
this is really just a stand-in for that style of opening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That style of opening was actually a French invention in the 1800s.
That's right.
From
Yeah.
Amazon?
Yeah. It got popularized in the
Interesting.
Philippines because of the French colonies and stuff over there.
But
I
apparently
still,
France
I
and
still
Germany.
said to this day
Yeah.
that the idea behind you holding the handle
It
locks the
can't close
knife.
on you.
It
This
is
is-
the strongest mechanism out there.
Double pins locking that as an anchor in place.
It's not going anywhere.
Function-wise, I realize that there's old 70s Canadian boys that are like, you're not allowed to have them, but
I wish we
we
could.
people
Yeah.
have moved
Yeah.
on to more dangerous things in this world and worse intentions than how to open a knife. Because we've got, and that will almost lead us
Well,
into Emerson's. and
Talking
it's
about
just-
stuff that opens from the pocket, talking about things that open with the press of a button, not even so much a button, but off the flipper tab, like very minimal effort. Yeah, the
Yep.
laws are archaic. We got to abide by them if we want to stay,
That we do, yep.
on the up and up. But
And at the end of the day, I'd rather have a cutting tool than an illegal weapon.
Yes.
So I continue to have the ones that I'm allowed to have.
I wish they made a shorter version.
Hopefully they'll
3 1/4 inch.
California legal, just make it 2 inches.
I was gonna regrind my blade.
It's Canada. It's only 2 inches. It's not dangerous. It's weed, right?
Yeah.
But like amidst, and it was kind of funny because, and just before we go off of it, butterfly knives were super popular right up until they were disallowed across the states and later, not much longer later, but in Canada. And it kind of necessitated the need for more locking folders because this was reliable, but now you couldn't have it.
Yep. Okay, so now that we've gone back in time a little bit to touch back on some of the older styles, we're going to go on to the more modern styles, and the only one at the table with them is Dennis right now, and we're going to talk about some assisted openings.
So I have Mr. Osborne again, the guy who year 2000 came up with the beautiful thing. I've got his version of an assisted, 2012, 2013. I'm not 100% sure. I EDC'd this for a couple of years. It's got a sweet spot in my heart. Now, Ken Onion or Blackie Collins, I'm not 100% sure who came up with it first, but there was the speed safe design.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't dabbled too much into the speed safe design, but it was a big part of the history as well, if not late 80s, early 90s, with the Skyans and the leaks. And I'm not sure, don't quote me on that, we'll have to fact check the speed safe.
Yep.
But even the blackouts with the thumb studs, and Blackie had some custom stuff. I know he was through United Cutlery with what I know from Blackie Collins stuff, but that was like the pre-bankruptcy days of United Cutlery because they went under in like 2008. Before that, they actually had some stuff that was ATS 34, which is like similar to 154 CM, stuff like that.
Nice.
United Cutlery had some reputable stuff in the back in the day, and Blackie did some designs for them. But then you got Ken Onion rocking up the Kershaw and the ZT field. And this is my own personalized custom 301. It's my Tigger knife. It's hideous and beautiful all at the same time.
As far as I like color, that thing's an abomination.
It's Cerakoted. So as far as the abuse it can take, I've choked this back into a V-grip, and I've chopped wood with this knife, V-cut through logs. And this thing is, like the box says, it's built like a tank. Like
I'm not hating on the paint job. The gentleman that did it did a great job. But the color choice, that's on you.
Well, they had, no.
What other color choice would you have if you're trying to make a Tigger knife?
They had a ZT.
I've never tried to make a Tigger knife.
Well, then you, sir, have not lived your life to the fullest.
They had a limited edition ZT 350.
Okay.
That was black handled G10 on both sides, but it had an orange and black tiger stripe blade. They had that limited edition, and I just wanted to take it one step further because this is the 301, which is built like an absolute hand grenade.
It's a beast.
Okay.
What do you
I was going to ask if the blade was customized as well.
It was customized, but he had a hard time tiger striping it. I've actually done some custom paint jobs back in the day, and after he got it and got it back, he said he did it 3 or 4 times to try to get the right pattern, and he still wasn't satisfied with it. I took it because he was giving me a smoking deal. He normally does gun parts, and this was one of the first pocket knives he ever did, so I let him guinea pig this thing and just see what he could do.
Fair enough.
I gave him some suggestions on how to make the stripe pattern a little bit better in the future, and I think he's going to take that. I think he's old school, so he doesn't even have an Instagram handle to tell you the truth, but he's based out of Calgary. He does some good work. And yeah, I mean, I did actually have a little bit of a complaint with they Cerakoted the pivot, and so it really slowed down the mechanism
On the inside?
and so I taped it off, sanded it down. No, I think I actually gave it back to him, and he fixed it himself.
And this is something that you kind of have to know a little bit about SpeedSafe to know why it would have been slowed down. Essentially, there's a spring that's inside this one side of the handle, and that spring actually comes down like a lever, and it hooks into the blade. So if you tighten the
Quick
pivot
picture
too
of
hard,
a skeletonized Kershaw right here.
Cut out.
Bing. Okay,
more work for Nigel.
continue on.
But essentially, what you're doing is there's no spring tension up till about this point. Now you're loading it, and then it creates the detent. Whereas getting into the barrage
The
here,
coil.
the coil spring is more similar to some of the automatics that were around back in the day.
I want to dabble on this just for a second.
Yep.
It's attached to the pivot,
Mhm.
so it actually keeps it closed as well. It has a certain
Yes.
point where it's attached and it sucks it to the pivot this way. It'll uncoil and uncoil.
So
It's
you
a smart
can't
design.
modify this to be non-automatic or non-assisted, but you could with something like
If
this.
there's a good enough detent
Mhm.
on your particular model, then yes, you can.
Some ZTs have
Yeah.
a detent, some ZTs have a speed safe that act like a detent.
And a lot of the time
Not
with
sure
the
which are which.
ZTs and also with the Kershaws that have the speed safe in it, they kind of rely on the spring in there to help tension the blade in, and that acts as a detent. So a lot of the time when you take out the torsion bar, it doesn't have a
They're
detent.
floppy.
and
That's what
they
I'm saying. It's
grab.
like-
Yeah.
With something like this, you want to make sure you know what kind of mechanism you got if you want to.
This is
modify
a bit different. Because it's the axis lock, it will always provide its own detent, even if you were to decide to deassist it. However, the way it is built, there's a constant tension that is applied to the blade past a certain point. Before that, it overcomes itself and holds itself in place. So even if you depress the lock, it doesn't open.
So I know the Torrent is an old model. I don't think it's that old, but was the Barrage the first assisted Benchmate?
Well, they called this, they called one of them Nitrous Assist.
Nitrous.
And-
Oh no, the Nitrous were the Strikers. The
Then that would've
Strikers
been
had
these.
Nitrous Assist.
Then this is also Nitrous Assist, isn't it?
Nope.
I want to say the Torrent was nitrous.
I think it was too, but
Yeah.
the Strikers were before the Torrent.
Yeah, but as far as the style
You
of
bet.
the assist,
Yeah,
I want to say the
I
Torrent
have
was
a
a
Okay,
Strike.
fair
strike.
enough.
Agreed.
Then
Yeah.
what is this called?
I don't know. It's a coil spring on the inside. I haven't taken it apart because I haven't needed to. There's a touch of blade play, but I don't use this knife hard enough to. And the coil will shoot out like a can of snakes if you're not careful. So honestly, for how hard I use this knife anymore, I used to EDC it, and that's probably why it has blade play nowadays.
Yeah.
Mine, I actually had the cheaper version of than yours with plastic handles. Mine did have some pretty consistent blade play right from day one. It never got any worse though, so I never felt the need to go in and adjust it.
And as we're talking about the assisted opening stuff, once again touching base that we are in Canada, we are restricted for what we can get as far as the automatic opening knives, and the assisted stuff was kind of made as a workaround to the restrictions that some countries and specific states in America have placed on automatically opening knives.
Initialize in contact with the blade because
Mhm.
this little flipper tab is actually part of the blade. So as you feed it through, that flipper tab protrudes out on the other side, and I am initiating contact with the blade
Yeah,
right
you're
here.
pushing the blade.
So
and
as
the
I
blade is
initiate
going the rest of the way.
contact, then the spring takes over rather than an automatic where the spring does 100% of the opening.
Yeah,
right?
The combination. Sorry, go for it.
And as Joe was saying earlier, how it's got its tension up to a certain point and then sucks in. Automatic knives will have tension fully loaded
All
on the
the way.
blade. That as soon as the mechanism is released, it will spring out right away.
I call it the loaded position.
Yes,
Automatics are
absolutely.
always in the loaded position,
Yeah.
whereas an assisted opening doesn't have a loaded position until it gets to a certain point. Like even there, I have not unloaded. And man, this thing unloads.
Good job.
So anyway, yeah.
It was a
That's what she
combination
said.
between spring-assisted flippers such as this one and flipper tabs like this, which have no assist, but were nonetheless very smooth. Between the two, I mean, we see it on cheap gas station knives all the time now, but flippers have become a staple in opening
Mhm.
mechanisms.
And then the progression of the flipper from the unassisted with Teflon bearings, because God bless
Yeah.
them, but it's CRKT.
Yeah,
so
it
it's
was
Teflon.
more of a way to get the blade out and
Um,
give it a hard flick to get it fully deployed.
To maybe not the best mechanisms. This thing is built like a tank. Again, I've taken it apart. It's right up there with the Slims Bowie as far as solid mechanisms, but
Yeah.
still a spring that just like fire it out like a son of a something. To the new ball bearing systems, which you don't need anything for. They're so tuned in that they are just a rapid fire. And I was going to let Nigel take the bigger of the two because it's Nigel's hand.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've got apple pickers. And okay,
You sure do.
oh, it leads us into the new conversation, which I
But
just noticed on
Before I
this
was going to touch on that, kind of the current production, like within the last 10 years, modern flippers, the kind of expectation is they are a replication of the assisted opening, that they should be smooth and have a quick enough action that they just pop
open all the
straight
way.
out right away. Whereas the earlier flippers were more of a starting to get the blade open.
they were more of a light switch compared to the press button because
Mm-hmm.
the detents on these things now have been so tuned in that you get the right press button and that detent snaps out. And I talk to people all the time that are like, they hit a knife and all of a sudden it'll open up that much.
Yeah.
And they light switched it. And even then, these things
Yeah.
are so tuned in. I can't not light switch it. Anyway,
This
yeah.
one was every time.
And as far as consistency, modern machining techniques, again, we see the progression of better and better knives, more and more consistent actions on locking mechanisms, or rather on opening mechanisms.
So yeah, now that we've kind of gone over all the current modern sort of styling of productions of knives and different opening styles, let's touch base on what's everyone's favorites.
Ooh, okay.
Before Dennis gets into his rant,
No, my favorites compared to my least favorites are two different conversations, my friend.
all right.
Favorites. Go ahead to everyone.
Oh man, okay. The current collection that I have before you doesn't
Okay,
reflect
let's-
that, but opening holes. I really do like opening holes.
I do like them a lot too.
Yeah.
So I threw this one in the mix very specifically tonight, not only because it's one of my top three, because it is totally
Yeah.
one of my top three, but because it also has the bias frame lock. So when it comes to opening holes, it was a good example of something that might not work for everybody. Might not work, because I no shortage of opening holes for Joseph, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah.
Also,
Bradley.
wasn't the main carry, but Gil
Oh,
Bradley shares
yeah,
well.
yeah, I don't have it this week. Sorry, guys. I had the Griptilian instead.
And again, just the idea that like no matter what, I can access this thing, I can shove my thumb into it, and it's gonna open.
Yeah,
Wow.
okay.
Yeah, and we're gonna leave that context right where it is. We're
Please
gonna put all these holes away before someone gets
Before Joe gets his fingers in them again.
Yeah.
Hey now,
So
You
for
like
me personally, I think the thumb stud is my preferred way to opening. It's the most convenient, most all-around, easy to use. One thing that I find
Where's the
that
Samantha? You can't be a fast. Yeah, all right.
one thing that I do find as a deterrent about it is depending on the position of it, where it's placed on the blade, it has the potential to get in the way of any cutting tasks and potentially in the way of sharpening.
it could also be poorly accessible, which
Yeah.
really
Well, no, I'm going to call this one out that with
there's
these
supposed
guys,
to be stops.
yeah, with this one and also the Carson design flipper stuff, there is not a stop pin built into the blade or into the handles. The thumb studs are actually the stop pin to hit the line.
That's a great point.
They are not designed as thumb
And
studs.
Kershaw, CRKT, ZT have done a great job doing that.
And
However,
some
there
knives
have-
get really, really good where they get both.
Yes.
With a thumb
yes,
stud
yes.
and it's a stop.
562 CF,
Yeah.
Emerson, ZT
But I will
design
say
is a great
That
example.
there have been some knives, usually by companies who haven't put as much money into R&D and designing, where the thumb studs they can be a little bit hit and miss. Whereas even if it's a crappy knife, if it has an opening hole, it tends to open relatively smoothly.
Yeah.
But when they're done right,
You need a good shape on those thumb studs.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they tear your thumb up real bad.
people talk about volcano issues a lot.
Knife we don't have here, which I wish we did because it's a great example of it, is a Kershaw Blur with the ramped thumb stud.
yeah.
They're
those
really
are
nice.
nice.
Because
Those
you
are-
just give them a nudge and they just fire open. But Kershaw's tolerances on the torsion bar on that one, that's the one I see fall open and just kick like crazy more than any other knife, right? So,
Yeah, you definitely want it against your seam.
well, what do you got for favorite openings?
I'm gonna get accused of being controversial
Of course you are.
in your regards.
Of course
but
you are.
it's
We gotta
probably
go
flippers.
flippers. Now you probably are partial to an unassisted flipper.
By far.
Because you've been in the world where torsion bars are a thing of the past nowadays because of the tuned-in aspect. I mean, even with, like you said, the nice press button design where it just you press it open.
It just opens.
Oh, I fail.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay.
Well,
Well,
so thumb stud. Flippers with ball bearings specifically.
fair enough. Fair enough.
Yep. I find that the flipper tab, if it's done with the design of the knife and incorporated into the design of the knife, it can be very, very well. But that's kind of the hindrance that I find with it is.
More of an aesthetic difference for you.
Yeah.
The aesthetic difference.
It is
Sometimes-
nice when they fit to the shape of the knife or they hide completely away.
Yep. So Dennis's favorite opening.
Oh, it's coming down to thumb studs and thumbs holes.
He's making the decision now, folks.
Being a Benchmade guy for the last so many years of my life.
I like both.
Oh, dude! And then I started to warm up to the Spyderco holes, and
I'm gonna be
there's
honest.
such a valid point with cutting path on the Spyderco holes that I think I have to give it to. Oh, that hurts me on the inside to say
One
it.
major
A
advantage.
hole.
One major advantage as opposed to a thumb stud, you keep any obtrusion, and this isn't bad in this particular instance, but you do keep intrusions out of the cutting path of the blade.
And it still doesn't mean I can't be a Benchmade guy because I got a grip Tilly in
course.
with the 20 CV with the hole on it. So even though I love the Benchmades and the thumb studs and I can flick them all day long and I annoy everyone I know by doing it, the holes have this geometry and this practicality that just makes more sense.
Yes, I do love the practicality of the holes for sure, but I am a very visually aesthetic person, and I find sometimes the hole will get kind of jammed into a design, and the design will have to get compensated to make the hole fit.
I'm the first one to admit that the Gale Bradley is not the prettiest looking knife on the shelf.
Because of the hole.
And that's just it. And the common argument from
Like-
Spyderco fans, I'm sure we'll hear it if there's Spyderco fans in the comments, that, oh, well, but it adds utility. Like, you have that ramp that you can now put your thumb on, and it means there's more area for you to get purchase on the blade. And yes, it's, like, functionally, absolutely. But I think Nigel has a good point. It looks ass ugly in a lot of instances.
Yes, and Sal Glesser has actually stated that Spydercos are designed for the hand, not for the eye.
And I can respect that, absolutely.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, sorry, at the end of the day, when you have a full flat ground blade and you have that little bit extra of a bump, you get a little bit more blade. You get a little bit longer transition to the edge.
Yep.
You get a slicier blade out of the deal.
Yep, and even as Dennis pointed out that this is not one of the prettiest Spydercos, you put it in your hand and, oh my god, that is comfortable.
I Spydercos as users.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always said, just put it in your hand and don't look at it.
Yeah.
You'll be a huge fan of Spyderco.
That's exactly it.
Another thing we shall leave in context.
I feel like I should mention, though, that even though I did pick flippers, thumb studs and spidey holes are like, if this is a 10, they're 9.9s. Like, I really enjoy them. I like them across the board. I don't care.
Okay, I gotta call out flippers right now. I want to see.
Well, I was just going to say, now that everyone has done their favorite knives, let's go on, or their favorite opening styles, let's go on to our least favorite, and on the basis of flippers.
Oh, these boys have been waiting for me to ramble flippers.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Being a lefty, let's start off with the big obvious thing about pinning the frame lock and the detent that Spyderco or that ZT has. As a lefty, you put your thumb right there as a nice natural opening, and you press and you press and you press, and then you realize your thumb's right in the way, and you got to move your thumb off. Very small detail, but such a conscious detail that I can't just grab my knife and toss it open like I know I should.
All I'm going to say is they don't call it right-handed for no reason.
But I also have to make a counterpoint to that as well, that me personally, I find, and it's probably just because of the size of my hands, that I rarely have that issue of pinning in the frame
The
lock.
lock stick, the detent stick.
Yep, I rarely have that issue.
It is the bane of modern flippers for
Yeah,
me.
but
like,
I
seriously.
also find that trying to teach people about the flippers and how to open them and stuff, I have more right-handed people having an issue with them of either pushing on the pocket clip or else getting their middle finger onto the lock bar and pinching it in, and I find more right people have an issue with it than left people.
I actually do agree that it's a common issue. I'm a lefty that does it quite often, but even with righties that I talk to, and they're like, wow, that's really stiff to open. And I look at their hand, and it's pinned.
Yep.
Well,
As soon as you get into this position, though.
I understand, but how long? That's not a cutting position, and that's why I dislike flippers. Is you're compromising your grip to be able to open a knife. Whereas a thumb stud, I go bang and I wrap my fingers around the choil.
But I also have to say, I go bang and wrap my fingers around the choil. There's
I've got
such
3
a
fingers on this knife.
There's not much of a transition there.
It's right there.
For me
I don't
personally,
agree.
I find it such a minute difference.
You can be wrong,
that
it's
I
okay.
don't mind it.
Like this movement here to flick, I've already got it that I'm gripping. Like it's such a minor movement.
Sure, for hard use, but now let's say that I'm just cutting
And you've
something
already
small.
tucked it around, whereas my fingers are already around, and it's just a 30 degree
Yeah, I do definitely
compared
agree.
to a 75 degree.
For hard use tasks, but for 95% of what you're doing, you're just cutting something small.
Yeah, me personally, I find that the difference in the adjustment of grip doesn't really affect me that much.
No.
Like, I don't find it that much of a hindrance.
I think, you know what? I think what part of it is people grab a knife and they really do clench down on it when they're trying to open it because it's a tool, it's a man's tool. I have to hold it a certain way, and this is the way it is. And they don't think that, well, I don't need that much pressure. I can just hold it gently, and it opens, and it's not a problem.
I'm gonna be honest with you. At the end of the day, I like the fact that my knife is difficult for other people to open because I carry this thing a lot in my back pocket, and if somebody happened to grab it and they tried to pull it on me, they
have
can't
knives-
get it open.
We have knives with built-in safeties, though. I mean, this is...
Yes, but it's not even a safety. I know how to open my knives.
Then I have to get into the fact that as I'm cutting along, I've got this thing in the way of my cutting path, which I also don't like.
Do you,
I've
do
never
you
run
cut a
into that
lot
issue.
in that position? I usually cut up here.
I cut down and like forward type of thing as I'm doing it, type of, right? Like I'm down and into it. You see me feather stick where I'm pushing down and into. I'm using the entire blade.
I was
as
gonna
a
say you
feather
look like
stick.
you're cutting cheese there, but
That too. Like, but this hangs up on the blade, whereas a thumb stud, a thumb hole, there's nothing. And again, the hole, nothing to hang up on the blade. It's just going right back to the end of
But
the.
I just can't say that I've ever had that issue. And I've made different levels of different experiences doing different tasks, but I can't...
like I was saying before, I carry my Spydercos as a user knife. You probably can't get a better choice in the hole.
And yeah, like me personally, the nail nick is actually my least favorite opening.
Yeah, mine too.
I don't think what we
Or this one.
No, just
Wow. Yeah. This thing is how people lose fingers.
Hey, come on. It's not that bad.
I shouldn't hate too hard. I have one of those.
Okay, so with me, I guess the nail nick mentality or the friction lock mentality, for me, it's not a modern knife mentality.
No.
Mhm.
So like last week's episode with the lion steel slip joint, people talk about it being a ritual when you're opening your knife.
Yeah.
And as soon as you talk about the buck knife and as soon as you talk about the shun, especially at a restaurant, that's so much of a ritual for me as you're sitting down to eat and you're like, okay, it's this. Rather than being just like, I want to cut some cardboard. Like,
I can
it's-
do that.
there's not a ritual to my day-to-day knife needs, whereas there's knives that make the ritual happen, right? So, and especially, like I said, especially with the shun. So,
yeah, for sure. So what's Joe's least favorite opening?
Oh, man.
discs haven't even come into play. They're just like kind of in the middle of
Well,
it.
It's a thumb stud.
And
Yeah,
Emerson-
so yeah, I just kind of
So what about
classified.
Emerson's?
Okay, I you know what? For day-to-day use, I hate having to be conscious about turning my knife inside my pocket so I don't deploy the wave in a situation where I don't want to grab a ton of attention.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't be carrying a knife like this if I didn't want a ton of attention, I guess. But I mean,
We didn't talk about that.
oh,
Anyway.
okay. Well,
No,
That's
we'll
not
come back
an
to
opening
that.
No.
mechanism. That's a locking mechanism. That's a different episode.
We'll talk about that later. So I'd have to say for day-to-day use, I don't like nail nicks either. It's simply too slow to open for a lot of what I have to do. Back when I was at the college, I would often have one hand busy or just filthy, and the other hand clean so I can operate other tools. And if I needed to get my knife open, I could finagle it. Screw that. I would rather carry any one of these, a flipper, an open and hold, anything.
At the end of the day, you
Yeah,
can have
it-
options.
But
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
If push comes to shove. I
But
think.
when I know that this is reliable and safe, and there's no chance of me screwing it up, then I'm going to go with something
Probably
like that.
less scary than somebody coming out.
So
and
what is
doing
your
one of
final
these as
answer?
well.
Yeah.
For least favorite, nail nicks.
Okay.
For what we have here,
Yeah, across the board.
and I'm going to include this as well, just because it's a two-handed opener. Same sort of deal.
This one goes into a novelty category.
Specifically,
Oh,
nail
yeah,
nicks
yeah.
that you can't pinch grab.
Yeah.
If you have to get in there with your nail to get it open, I hate them.
Yes.
I have no nails.
So that's a whole bunch of opening mechanisms. That's my gripe on flippers, and I won't die on my gripe. Although, if you guys had it thrown up like a ZT456, man, that thing is a sweet flipper.
Mhm.
A steel wheel cut jacket's one of my favorite knives out right
Yep.
now. As far as a budget knife, I'm in love with that thing, and
I
it's a
love that
flipper.
knife.
Yeah.
I should love it way more less than I do, but.
And you don't think that flipper gets in the way of the cutting path in the same
Oh,
way
of
that
course
these
it
do.
does, but
Yeah.
the way that it fits into my hand, that finger trail, you guys
Yeah,
mock
the-
me for finger
Yeah.
trail.
As soon as I get onto the finger trail, though, I don't have to worry about it getting in the way. My fingers get in the way first.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a pillow.
Yeah, for me, as much as I love flipper tabs and the opening of them, as I've touched on it already, it's definitely very much the aesthetic of it, if it fits into the knife and flows well
Fine.
with the design of the knife. But for me, flippers are a fidget factor thing.
Oh,
I
definitely.
love playing with
Yeah.
them. They are so fun to flip.
That's
I find I flip other stuff more.
Fair.
And that maybe comes into my love of Benchmates with the access locks that are so smooth
Mhm.
that you can just drop close them because the fidget factor on the Benchmates. And that's probably why I wear out springs, and that's why I call Benchmade for warranty, like you guys should for your green Osborne. But that's
I'll
another
get that
topic
bargain.
for another day. Yeah. Have we dabbled on everything?
I think so.
Favorites and least favorites.
Okay.
Talked about them
Yep.
all. Yeah.
I'm sure everyone that's watching this video will make decisions for themselves on what their favorite openings
Yep.
are.
Let us know what's in the comments.
Exactly.
What's your favorite?
Weigh your opinions, give us your feedback, let us know as well. We'd like to have a conversation with everyone that's out there.
I hope I can sway people away from the flipper craze.
Stop wafting your farts.
I'm kind of wafting and towards myself, so anyway. This is the way to go. Anyway, we're going to leave it at that.
All right, so yeah, signing off again for this week. It's Nigel the Smith.
I am who I am. I'm Dennis Vipers.
I am the Iron Joe.
And I am exile.ca.
We will see you again. Have a good one.
See you guys.
We don't need bigger knife. Yeah.